Again, what is Christian Zionism? Okay. What is dispensationalism? Zionists funded the Scofield Bible. Scofield himself was actually a horrible man. He was drunk.
In this video, we're going to take a look at Mrs. Candace Owens, episode 37, that was done on August 1st, 2024. Candace has a lot to say about a very controversial topic, Christian Zionism, and its roots, according to her. So, I'm a dispensationalist. I've been a Christian for over 25 years, and I can tell you right now that I'm very qualified to discuss this subject. So, Candace, I hope you watch this video. Let's do this. All right, so first things first, I want everyone to understand that this is not an attack on Candace. It's definitely going to be constructive, and I am not in any way trying to pick a fight with anyone. I really hope she watched this, but if she does, I'll be super surprised. Anyways, I am definitely qualified to discuss this subject. I have here a beautiful brand new Scofield Reference Bible, 1917. In fact, if it's not the 1917 edition, it's not a Scofield Reference Bible. I'll just say that up front. But I have been reading that Bible specifically for over 2 decades. I've been studying that system that is what would be labeled classical dispensationism for just as long as I've been reading that reference Bible. I'm very well read in this subject. I've read multiple types of authors. I definitely have done my homework. I've tried very hard to be able to understand the history of dispensationalism and then also be able to try to teach it. I have debated this subject too. So it's definitely a subject that I would say is near and dear to me, and I'm qualified to talk about it. And also, I think that I can give a very balanced view and approach to it. Now, again, this is not an attack on Candace, but definitely those who are watching this will be surprised to find out that Candace has some of these beliefs. Many of Candace's followers, 4.17 million, I think, YouTube followers. I'm sure a lot of them are traditional dispensationalist Christians. She is Roman Catholic now, so I'm sure a lot of Roman Catholics watch her, and I'm sure they watched her before she became a Roman Catholic. But beside all that, what I want people to understand is that I'm trying to give constructive feedback. My hope is that people like Candace will be able to see something like this, and those who follow her and those who subscribe to her belief system in regards to how she views dispensationalism and Christian Zionism, that they'll take a step back and that they'll reevaluate how they view people like myself and my belief systems. So please, I ask you, that's the way we need to approach this. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what she has to say in this clip, which is about 9 minutes and 36 seconds long.
Again, what is Christian Zionism? Okay. What is dispensationalism? What is it that these people believe? And so when I started doing the research, I went, aha, there is this thing.
Okay, real quick. So her thing is that she's trying to figure out, like, what is Christian Zionism? What is dispensationalism? I'm going to leave at the end of this video. You'll see a link to my video on dispensationalism. I go in detail. I try to give the most simplest explanation of what dispensationalism is. But I'll tell you straight up, the most simplest sentence or definition of dispensationalism. Dispensationalism is simply a belief system that looks at the Bible through ages and stages. That's it. That's all. It looks at the Bible and says, we are going to look at it like we would look at American history. We look at American history, politically speaking, I should say. We have a constitution, the foundation, which we could equate to our Bible. And then throughout the American history, we elect a new president, and each new president has a new administration / dispensation, and things are run differently. Eras, ages, stages, however you want to view it, they are synonymous. They are alike. So that is something that needs to be understood, and definitely viewed in the right way. Because if not, you're just going to view dispensationalism as just apocalyptic speak, where all someone thinks is the end of the world, and that it's total destruction, and then we're going to be zapped out right before it all happens. That's not dispensationalism. Those may be teachings within dispensationalist circles, but that's not dispensationalism at its core. So one thing Candace Owens doesn't do, she actually doesn't give us, I'm sorry, I'll give it a little better view. There you go. She doesn't give us an actual definition of dispensationalism. And so I understand that, this is something very new to her. You can kind of tell as she talks about dispensationalism and Christian Zionism and the next subject, Scofield. But definitely from where I came from, it's so important to understand what dispensationalism is and its roots, and really get into the classic dispensationalists and many of the men that laid the foundation of it. As far as I know, there wasn't any women, but if there were, great, that'd been rad. But for the most part, this was led by men in the early 1900s.
Read the Bible, and the Bible's got notations, and then you have a pastor who's telling you what all of these verses mean, the King James Bible, and this is what this verse means, and take it to the bank. And you never stop and ask yourself, well, who made these notations? What inspired Scofield to make these notations?
Okay, real quick, before we get into what inspired Scofield to make these notations, she makes a point about just the common Baptist church. I think the traditional way. You go to church, you listen to the pastor, you look at it, and you look at the Scofield Reference Bible, and you read the notes, and you're like, oh, there it is. That's what the verse means. I mean, yes, there are Christians who do that, but a lot of Christians that I know, and the ones that I spend time around with, they'll look at that and they'll be like either meat or bones, and they are able to decipher what is truth, what is error, what's a mistake, or what's something that should be taken with a grain of salt. So and I have 4 kids, by the way, and that's the way I train them up. I don't train them up in the way that Candace is describing. When you go to church. Now, yes, there are some churches like that. I would say in the past, especially in the IFB, Independent Fundamental Baptist movement, that definitely was the case. But for the most part, I think churches today, especially Protestant churches, I think you can go to church. You might have notes in your Bible, and you take it or leave them. You judge them. Now, hey, there are people that will say, "Well, the notes in my Bible say this," and they trust the scholars, and they think thus says the scholars. But at the end of the day, I would say most Bible-believing Christians, they look at these notes as possible helps. And they either see him as meat or bones, and they're the judge of that.
Of course, right when I had it on my heart to start speaking about this particular Bible, and it's taken me a lot of time because I don't wish to offend other Christians. I don't wish to offend the people who really a large part of everything that I've been through in this pull that brought me back to the Catholic faith. I owe a large part of my career to so many Christians around the world who have supported me from the very beginning. And so I've struggled.
Yeah. So she definitely has and from the start had a lot of support from traditional Christians. I really enjoyed Candace. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't watch her show. This came to me via probably an algorithm on my YouTube channel. Or my YouTube feed. But, at the end of the day, for Candace to really say that, she went back to her Catholic faith and she owes a lot to a lot of Christians. I mean, I would say as a Catholic, she's a Christian too. But I understand what she's saying. But overall, yes, will people be offended by what Candace is saying? 100%. But I don't think anyone should, based upon this, not listen to her anymore. I would say, though, that moving forward, that things that she does say about other topics, whether even they're topics that you might agree with, that you might have to say, wait a minute, I probably should fact check that, what Candace just said, and double check everything, looking at the primary resources if possible. So that's just, 2 cents right there.
How to have this conversation. And I realized that there is no right moment to tell people the truth. And of course, at the moment that I made up my mind to tell people the truth, I then saw that Tucker Carlson had on John Rich, the country artist John Rich, and believe it or not, just a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about the Scofield Bible.
Okay, now real quick, I don't know who John Rich is, but I did see this clip, and so I'm glad she put it in this episode. And by the way, this was done like last year, so I'm definitely late in the game, if you will. or late to the game, but it is still very useful to discuss. Now, real quick before I move forward, I just don't think Candace has done her homework in this subject. I don't think she spent time in reading primary sources. I don't think she's taken a very unbiased approach to this. And by the way, I'll recommend books at the end of this video. But definitely, if you're going to rely on this country music star, it's not a good thing to do. So let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Listen.
Have you ever heard of a Scofield Bible?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So C.I. Scofield was basically a student of John Darby. And he...
Okay, real quick. So Scofield was not basically a student of John Darby. John Darby, I believe, died in 1882. And Scofield, he was alive then. He was in the Civil War. And Scofield eventually died, I think, 1922, somewhere around there. But Scofield actually never knew Darby personally. And from what we do know from Mr. Scofield's notes or his teachings, that he never specifically, that I know of, ever points to what this gentleman just said. Now, were there influences through Darby, through another gentleman? Possibly, but that's also been disputed. So people need to understand that when they hear John Darby as the father of dispensationalism, or is like whenever you talk about dispensationalism or Scofield and the first name that's brought up is Darby, usually that's a red flag. Usually that's a sign that that person is probably just keyboarding away on the internet, sees some article that kind of agrees with them and is going to validate their preconceived false ideas, I would say, and that's what they're going to hang on to, and that's what they look at. Darby is not the one that people should be immediately going to. From my standpoint, whenever we hear like an anti-dispensationalist say that the founder of dispensationalism is Darby, you've lost total credibility, like totally. It is 100% fact that we can go back well before Darby to show the principles of dispensationalism being taught amongst restorationists, amongst people who were seeking Israel's return, the 12 tribes that literally return and come back and be regathered by their Messiah. I mean, these are teachings that go way, way, way before Darby. But I will say this, was Darby someone that was highly influential in the 1800s to help bring about the modern dispensationalist movement that we see today? Of course he was. He definitely was. But you need to understand that Scofield did not personally know Darby. There is no record of Scofield carrying so much of Darby's teachings into his belief system. So people need to just understand that, because if you don't, it's really going to mess up the way you view your view of dispensationalism.
Adopted that part of the doctrine, and he incorporated that into the Bible. It was the first Bible ever made that had study notes with it. We have all kinds of Bibles now that have, concordances and study notes and all kinds of stuff that go along. But this was the...
So I don't know why he would say that, except he must not be a student of dispensationalism, because everybody knows, that is very familiar with the history of the Bible, that the Geneva Bible was the first study Bible, the first Bible with notes. And it was so influential that even King James made it very clear that one of the rules for the new translation in English, which became known as the King James Version, which wasn't the name given by the translators or King James, by the way. That was just a popular name eventually given to the Bible that we call King James today. It was just called the Holy Bible on the title page. But he specifically said that there's to be no notes in the Bible that he was overseeing, in the sense of he was the monarch at the time that allowed for a new translation. So I don't know why he would say that, unless this guy is completely ignorant of the history of the Bible. Also, another Bible that was around the same time as the Geneva Bible is the Douay-Rheims Catholic English translation. When you read the Douay-Rheims, it's clearly obvious that there's many notes in that Bible, and I would say that it's the second study Bible. I think it's clearly giving a lot of insight, a lot of notes for every book of the Bible, a lot of cross references. It's a lot of helps in that Bible. So to say that the Scofield Reference Bible is the first, that shows to me that you are very ignorant of this subject. Also, Scofield himself, when he created the Scofield Reference Bible, he was influenced by another Bible, which I believe was like the Analytical Bible. He specifically had it on his desk, like it was like the one Bible that he had next to him all the time. So the format of Scofield, as far as like the layout, the way things were to be presented, was highly influenced by that Bible. So that to me is a dinger right there. So let's move forward.
First one that was ever made. It became so popular. Every Christian was reading it. Every minister was reading it. And this continues today, to this exact second. My own dad.
Okay, well, first off, I'm sure he's exaggerating there, but maybe he's not. I don't know. But it definitely wasn't in every Christian's hand. It was extremely popular, yes, by I think the 1909 or 1970, I forget which edition, because there was two primary editions. The first edition was 1909, and then the final edition before Scofield died in, I believe, 1922, was the 1917 edition, and I believe by then it already had 2 million sales, 2 million in sales, not $2 million, 2 million copies of it have been sold. I mean, that was highly successful project that Oxford Press agreed to. But was it popular? Indeed, 100% was popular. I mean, here I am over 100 plus years later, and it's still near and dear to me. Now, is it as popular as it used to be? No way, not even close. Probably the only people who are still holding on to it are those of the Baptist persuasion. I think it's definitely has no part in the NIFB movement, the new Independent Fundamental Baptist movement. Probably there's remnants of it in the Independent Fundamental Baptist movement. Probably more so now, more in the extreme Baptist movements, and some of the traditional Baptists that have, probably in their 80s, 60s to 80s. I think that's where you see a lot of it. But as far as like young people go, overall, I'd be shocked if the sales were up. But maybe, hey, go check that out. Go ask Oxford Press, see how the sales are doing. Maybe they can release that. I don't know, but I would be really shocked if they were. So yeah. Anyways, let's move forward.
When he went in seminary and was wanting to become a minister, they said, make sure you have a Scofield Bible now when you come to class. Have your Scofield Bible.
I believe that.
Scofield Bible also adopted that entire John Darby philosophy of Christians will not be here when the bad stuff starts to happen. And most Christians still believe that. Matter of fact, a lot of my friends that are Christians are going to watch this interview are probably right now going, hang on a minute. Now, hang on. So
what he's talking about is the rapture. And I think he's gonna briefly hit it up, maybe, but did Scofield adopt Darby's view of the rapture from Darby? I see no evidence of that. Now, the idea of the rapture definitely preceded Darby. You can look up, for example, Joseph Mead in the 1600s. He writes about the rapture. He actually even uses the very word rapture. Can we say that it was Darby, the one that did it? That was the one that Scofield got it from? I don't see any evidence of that. Now, I will say this, though, is that are there a lot of Christians that are dispensationalists that will say, oh, we're all going to be gone. We're going to be raptured out of here before the Great Tribulation, and we're not going to be here for, the complete, like, utter crazy judgment that's mentioned in the book of Daniel and also in the book of Revelation. Yes, there are. I think at the end of the day, they're not, throwing their swords down. They're not just, giving up on life. I totally disagree with that. I don't see any evidence of that in my upbringing and in the other dispensations I grew up knowing. They're very highly productive people. I mean, if you go and you start to look at, for example, Tim LaHaye, who was a well-known dispensationalist, very influential, obviously was very influenced by Scofield. He was extremely, extremely influential in the world of politics. I mean, he's probably one of the most influential Christians in politics, and very few people even know about that. Another one would be Jerry Falwell, for example. I mean, he was highly involved in politics. I mean, Liberty University, they're all about training up students and Christians to be the next leaders in the United States of America. So, I mean, this sounds good. This might be convincing to some people who want to get rid of dispensationalism. But in reality, when you look at it in totality, no, if anything, dispensationalist institutions like Moody Bible Institute, Dallas Theological Seminary, Liberty University, I mean, these are institutions that have built men and women and taught men and women to be the leaders in America and to be able to influence society in a way that brings betterment and peace and prosperity.
This is pushing back against a doctrine that's been in existence now for coming up on 200 years. The problem with that doctrine is...
So again, he's going back. He's saying this doctrine's been up here for 200 years, and he's going back to Darby. And this man is country singer. I've never heard of him. I don't know any idea. I don't know anything about him. But I mean, look, Darby's not the guy. I just told you, Joseph Meade. You go back 400 plus years ago. He's talking about it, and it's just one of those things where just people, they just want to believe what they see on the internet and not look at primary sources. I mean, in the internet, you can look at primary sources, but I think they just want to read articles and see people and hang around with people that only agree with them and make them feel like they're right and we're wrong.
There's several places in the Bible where it talks about what's going to happen prior to Jesus Christ coming back to the earth. When he does come back, that is when what we call the rapture happens. The word rapture is nowhere in the Bible. It talks about us being caught up with him and pulled out of here, and then the ultimate wrath is poured out on this planet. That's what we call.
Yeah, he's right. The word rapture is not in our English Bible today, and that's because the translators didn't use that word. I mean, now, I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a new translation in English that will add that word or put that word, excuse me. And it's a Latin word, and so if you have a Latin Bible, I guess you could say it is in their Bible. So I mean, the concept is there in the Bible, but yes, is the word rapture and is the word Trinity in the Bible? I mean, do you believe in the Trinity? I know Carlson does. I mean, there are words that are not in the Bible that we believe the teachings are there. I don't think that's a good way to approach it, because then it doesn't take you anywhere but into a ditch.
All the rapture, so that's not in debate. The question is, what happens leading up to that? It's a good question to ask, right? For some reason, nobody ever preaches that. They don't want to talk about what all happens prior to it. So if I can I just read, if we have time? That's why.
I don't know who he's talking about, but I could tell you one thing right now, that growing up in a dispensationalist environment and a premillennial, pre-trib environment, I mean, I was always taught, man, it's going to get gnarly before we get to, the rapture. I grew up, if you thought you heard a trumpet horn and it was in fact it was a bull, it was a foghorn from a ship. I mean, that could have been the rapture for all I know. I mean, it was always like, dude, this world's gonna get crazy. The Antichrist is around the corner. Dude, we got to get ready for what's gonna happen. But that's not what's being painted right here by this country singer.
I love the thought of this interview.
I do too. But just to be clear, what you're saying is the Scofield Bible, its theology is deceptive.
I'm saying that.
Well, that Tucker Carlson believes that. He 100% believes that. And I'd be really surprised if Tucker Carlson even had a copy of the Scofield Reference Bible. Now, I believe Tucker Carlson is Roman Catholic, so I mean, I could see why he would not be happy with this reference Bible, because it does have some very, let's just say, harsh things to say about the Roman Catholic Church, specifically in Revelation. In regards to who's the whore, and he does believe that it's the Roman Catholic Church, but there are also Roman Catholics, at least I know from I want to say a few hundred years ago, that went so far as to believe that the Antichrist was going to come from the Roman Catholic Church, and that the Roman Catholic Church would apostatize. So, I mean, I just want people to understand that it's not just like a Protestant belief at all. Anyway, I got off on a tangent there, but I'm pretty sure Tucker Carlson's probably not even aware of what I just said about Scofield Reference Bible. But anyways, let's go on.
The same way the media takes a factual situation and twists it and gives you a version of it, which we all know we're force-fed every single day, the same exact tactic was used in 1830 by John Darby. And guess who he was connected to, by the way? The Rothschilds.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I think interesting is another way of saying, I don't believe you. I mean, I hope Tucker Carlson does not believe what this guy just said, because that is a lie. That is a full-blown lie. There is no historical evidence that Darby was connected or even influenced by the Rothschilds. Ladies and gentlemen, if anyone ever brings that up to you in a discussion about dispensationalism, that's a red flag. You need to say, stop it. Please, you need to right now show me the primary source documentation for that, or keep your mouth shut and don't ever say that again. You right now, that, when I hear that, immediately I'm thinking that discredits this guy completely. I mean, how's his process of coming up with the truth? There's no evidence for that at all. And I mean, I've grown up around conspiracies for over 2 decades. So I'm very well aware of the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. I mean, I grew up around John Birch society loving people. I mean, conspiracy this, conspiracy that. I mean, I know who Alex Jones was before most people knew who Alex Jones was. I mean, I was watching his videos. I was watching Road to Tyranny. I mean, this is where I blew my mind. Where I was like, bro, what did you just say about the Rothschilds? That they influenced and they knew Darby? No. That's not a mistake. That's a lie what this guy's saying. And it's sad because Candace Owens has over 4 million followers on YouTube. Tucker has a massive influence too. And people right now are listening to this and are like, yeah, Darby, he's influenced by Rothschilds. And then most people don't even know who the Rothschild is. Know they're a mean, bad banking family and they're Jewish. And yeah, you can't trust them. I mean, there's so much more to it. And by the way, I'm not saying because they're Jewish or anything like that, but definitely the Rothschilds as a banking family definitely are not, good Jewish, Torah observing, honest people. I'm talking about the top of the top. There's no way. There's no way. But regardless, people are going to believe what this guy just said. And I don't think Tucker does, but, maybe he does. Who knows?
He was connected to the Rothschilds family back in the day. That he did the same exact tactic and twisted that. I don't know why he did that. It worked because it took off. And I mean, there were churches popping up everywhere right after.
Well, first off, real quick. Churches popping up everywhere, people getting saved, people becoming Christians, people falling in love with the Bible. What's wrong with that? And that is a documented fact of what happened in the 1800s amongst the revival of premillennialism and dispensationalism. D.L. Moody, Billy Sunday, Sam Jones, who else? Gypsy Smith. I mean, all these men had a massive influence on America. Revivals came because God used them. So, where's your fruits, sir? Where? The fruits of your theology, in my opinion, is dangerous. And I'll get into that in a second.
That I'm saying that,
or a minute,
including me, including my own father, for a long time, that's what we believe too. But when you start actually going back and reading line by line by line what is said that will be leading up to Jesus coming back, which is when the rapture happens, it's the inverse of what John Darby put down.
I didn't know that, but somehow I'm not surprised even a little bit.
Fact check him, Tucker. Fact check him. Candace, fact check these guys. Look at the primary sources. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the primary sources. This is not true. Millions and millions of people were just fed these lies, and they're getting away with this. They shouldn't. They're misleading people. They need to stop.
And there's more, by the way. There's actually a lot more, and I'm grateful that John said all of this publicly, and I'm definitely going to have him on the show to talk about this at length, and he said a lot of important things there. So what happened is...
Real quick, a lot of important things. This is what I got out of it. The first reference, the first study Bible came from Scofield. False. We know that. It's a documented fact. Not even close to being true. He's not even like, there's no like, man, he's in left field right there. The other thing is Darby was directly connected with the Rothschild family. There is zero proof for that. That is a lie. That is far from the truth. And someone will say, well, what if he did have a connection? Like, is that bad? I mean, no. That's definitely like, it's almost like, okay, and like banker family, very wealthy. I mean, like, okay. But just to say like they were connected with the Rothschilds, what he's doing is he is pulling the conspiracies that are around the Rothschilds family and trying to connect them with John Nelson Darby. And that's just not how you do it. That's not how you present the truth to people. That's not how you try to convince them of the truth, because what you just said is not based in fact. It's not something that you can actually prove through primary sources or any actual hard evidence. So what Candace got out of that interview, she got lies. She got lied to. She got misled. And millions of Christians saw this. And the sad thing is Tucker Carlson, who I highly respect, he's a Ron Paul lover. I grew up loving and supporting Ron Paul, Representative Ron Paul. He's definitely anti-war. I'm totally against the military-industrial complex. Tucker is, Candace is, and I know definitely Tucker is. And so, Tucker is all about having a strong family. He's all about the family. He's all about the nuclear family. But here he's having a country singer on a show, and he's learning from him, and if from this we're getting that this is filled with evil. The Scofield Reference Bible is filled with evil. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. I mean, the thing is, I wish someone like Candace Owens or Tucker would have someone like myself that knows this book, believes this book, and can at least have a good, gentlemanly conversation about the belief systems in that reference Bible. So let's move forward.
Well, like I've said to you many times, history is just being erased second by second. You guys have no concept of what was happening in this country in the early 19th century. I had no concept, by the way. I don't even want to speak to you as if I'm so educated that I know more than you, because I thought all the same things that everybody thought.
I didn't think that, man. Thankfully, I grew up in a family that exposed me, or an environment that exposed me to question everything, to question the assumptions, to look at history from a conspiratorial mindset. And I do think you should do that. I mean, there's always the reason, and there's always like the real reason. Most of the time, a lot of times, especially when you get into the high world of politics and even religion. So this is something that Candace, I could tell, a lot of this is new to her. She is totally getting exposed. In the past 5 years, she has been exposed to things that I was exposed to when I was 10 years old. And you're probably, oh, well, David, you're so special. No, what it is that I'm very well well versed in this area, and I see this happen a lot. This happens all the time. People who are in the dark have no idea, and they get a little taste of little conspiracies here and there. There's some truth to this conspiracy. There's some interesting intrigue, and it makes sense. And all of a sudden, they're just like, they just go on this total tangent, and everything is a conspiracy, and everything is all about just this Zionist agenda that is designed to lie and steal from Christianity. And that's not the case. That's not even close to being true. And I think people like Tucker, this country singer, and also Candace are unfortunately being duped by all that. And I am trying to make sure that people won't be duped, and they'll come to the truth, and they'll see like, hey, wait a minute, David has something right here, and he's telling the truth. These people are being lied to, and then they're spreading the lie. That's what I'm concerned with.
That what I was learning in church was real and was authentic and was the true history. And it really took, when I was in study with a priest actually last year, and he looked up to me and he said, you Americans know nothing. You just know nothing. And he said, you don't even know that your country was founded by a bunch of Freemasons. Freemasons went there and they were battling for America.
So this is my concern, and there's such a thing within that. Something happens to somebody that's finally exposed to the world of conspiracies, okay, where they go way out of bounds. They go to the extreme, and they get to a point where they start saying things like, "You don't even know anything about the founding of your country. It was founded by a bunch of Freemasons." I mean, like, as far as I know, definitely probably like maybe 10% of the founding fathers were Freemasons. I don't know. Fact check me there. But did Freemasonry play a part in the founding of America? Absolutely. I don't think there's no way you can deny it. I mean, I would say easily like DC is, it was designed by a Freemason. Mr. Lafont, he was a Freemason. There's no question that Freemasonry has an influence. There's no question about that. But it gets to a point where I think people are I don't want them to hate America. And I think what happens a lot of times is that people can go so far that they are not balanced, and they start to like dislike everything around them, and they see everything as dark and nefarious, and we're all been lied to, and they become disillusioned. And that shouldn't be the case at all. There needs to be some balance. There were founding fathers that actually were concerned with the influence of Freemasonry. There were also people who warned George Washington about the influence of secret societies influencing the lodges in the United States of America. So I'm very aware of this subject. I lived in the DC area for almost 14 years. So this topic is near and dear to me, and I could tell you right now that the founding of America is not to be viewed as nefarious or somehow satanic. And there are people who do teach that. What I will say, though, is that America, I'm not going to say that it was founded by God and, it was his, like it's the new Israel. I'm not going to do that. And there were Bible-believing Christians who thought that. But I will say that America, man, is a pretty awesome country. And I'm so thankful, and I thank God that I was born and raised here. Thank God for that. And I'm sure Candace would say the same thing.
And someone won, right? One of the Freemason groups won America. And the truth of the matter is that the Catholic Church was approached by Zionists, and it was approached by Theodore Herzl in Italy. He went over Theodore Herzl, the person that they credit. So
real quick, I could tell that I don't think this was scripted, because a lot of these YouTubers, they have a teleprompter and they read it, and so it's right over their camera. Like, I don't have that. But I just feel like she's really unscripted here, and she's kind of like shooting off the hip, because she's like, wait, you were just talking about Freemasonry, and now you're talking about Herzl, and like, where are you at? And this is hard to do a review on, because I feel like it's all over the place. But I still thought be good to do because she has millions of followers, and she's repeating lies that are just way out of line and really dangerous. So now she's starting talking about Zionism, where definitely it's not her expertise at all.
Founding Israel, and he wanted the Catholic Church to support them taking over Israel. Now, this is before World War II, guys. We're talking about 1904. And the Catholic Church told Theodore Herzl to kick rocks. And that was a problem for the Christians. Were not going to support them taking over Israel. So they hatched up a plan. They said, well, if we can't get the Catholics to support us, we certainly can get the Protestants to support us. And they funded, I'm referring
real quick. So that is not what happened at all. As far as like, we went to the Catholic Church, Herzl that is, and they rejected us. So then we pivoted over to the Protestants and they accepted us. Like, that is the farthest thing from the truth. Zionism as we know it today definitely it doesn't resemble in any way what Zionism looked like maybe 150 years ago, or even 100 years ago or plus. I mean, Christian Zionism, if you will, has its roots in maybe, I would say, during Columbus period. I mean, Columbus thought that Israel was going to come back and the 12 tribes were going to come back. The Restorationist Christians were adamant that Israel was going to be restored, and that in order for Christ to come back, that Israel and the 12 tribes, that is, had to be restored. In fact, you might know of this character, Mr. Oliver Cromwell. He actually was influenced by a gentleman by the name of Manasseh ben Israel, who tried to influence the countrymen of England that they need to support the Jews and not persecute them, and by supporting them and by ensuring that they are able to have an environment where they can be restored, that this will speed up the return of Christ. This is a true story. This is actually real. So I urge you to check out Manasseh ben Israel. He actually wrote a book called The Hope of Israel, which he used to convince the Puritans during the Cromwellian reign, or I would say the Reich. It was horrible. I'm not a fan of Cromwell, but regardless, so the thing is very clear. You have to understand that Christian Zionism is by no means connected with Herzl. Not even close. Herzl wasn't even born yet until, or he wasn't even close to the what you would call the early Christian Zionists. Not even close. So, anyways, let's move forward.
to Zionists funded the Scofield Bible. Scofield himself was actually a horrible man. He was drunk. There was the story that you hear about him coming to an aha moment. No, he left his wife and kids and basically somehow landed in Dallas, where he met some Freemasons. They introduced him to Sam Untermeyer.
So what I'm going to say is this. At the end, I'm going to recommend some books, and I'm going to just let you be the judge. But before I do that, though, I have to give you a few things about Scofield, though. I have to. Was Scofield a drunk? Yes. But when was he a drunk? He was a drunk before he came to Christ. Now, he was a Civil War veteran, probably suffering from PTSD. He was definitely very, very involved in his drinking, and it impacted his life significantly. He, I would say, failed as a husband, failed as a father in his first marriage. He got divorced, and that's a bad deal. Never good. So does that make his Bible that he had multiple editors along with false and bad? No. Does it mean that he probably failed as a father and a husband because of the situation of his divorce? Absolutely, I would say that. And there's not a lot of details about the divorce, but I will say this: that after he came to Christ, there's absolute evidence that he was a new creature. There's absolute evidence that the man was no longer a drunkard, and this idea that he came in contact with Freemasons and the Freemasons helped him, there is no evidence for that. There is none at all. That's not the case at all. Is it possible that some of the men that he was friends with through Bible studies, that they were Freemasons? Yeah, that's totally possible. I mean, but then again, like, what are we going to do with George Washington? Are we going to just forget about the founding of our country, and just anything that comes out of his mouth is not worth listening to? I mean, what about Benjamin Franklin? He was a Freemason, so anything that comes out of his mouth, we can't trust anything he says. Like, it's just rubbish, or we have to be completely skeptical. So, like, again, like, we're not talking about Albert Pike here, okay? Who definitely, I would say, is someone that is nefarious. We're talking about Scofield, who was not a Freemason, by the way, and as far as I know, didn't get to where he got to because he was hanging out with Freemasons. He got to where he got to because he was a very gifted man. He was an amazing orator. He was analytical. He was able to break complex subjects down and deliver them in such a way that a young child could understand them. That's what type of person he was. And after he got saved, he was a mighty man for God. He got saved at 36 years old, and he, hands down, was a highly, highly influential man in Christianity for good after he became a Christian. Where she's getting her information from, I know not, but I could tell you one thing: it's not true.
Who's known, I guess, most notoriously for blackmailing Woodrow Wilson in order for him to have the Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis. He's basically said he blackmailed Woodrow Wilson to get Louis Brandeis the Supreme Court nomination. And Samuel Untermeyer allowed this guy, Scofield, entry into the Lotus Club. Lotus Club was...
Yeah, so real quick, let me go back. So Scofield did enter politics at a very young age. Again, like I said, he was very gifted. I mean, he was a great lawyer, and he had he grew up around prestige. He grew up around influence. On his father's side, came from a well-to-do family, well off. His wife was a French aristocrat. Her dad was highly influential in the history of America. So definitely Scofield was not your average American. He was very self-taught, educated on his own. He did not go to university to study law or anything like that. But it was obvious that he was gifted, and so he was then pulled into politics in the area of Missouri and Kansas and St. Louis area. And before he became a Christian, he became I believe Attorney General for the Kansas territory, and it was during Grant's administration, Grant's dispensation, if you will. And Grant, and I think many people know this, was known for being corrupt, and his administration was filled with a lot of corruption. And Scofield, again, he was not a Christian. He was he was a drunk. He was probably completely involved in dirty politics. He was part of that. We know that. But again, going back to his post-conversion, we don't see any evidence of that old Scofield. The Apostle Paul, by the way, we know that he was chasing and persecuting the Church of God. Okay? King David, we know that he's guilty of murder. We know all the wicked adultery that he committed. King Solomon too. I mean, are we now to say that these, like, anything that comes out of their mouth is bad? Like, we can't trust anything? I mean, there's a point where you're like, okay, you got to realize that if you're going to assassinate Scofield like that, then you're going to assassinate everyone that's near and dear to you and your faith. So, use caution, use wisdom. But I hope you see that I am pointing out that, yes, Scofield made some major mistakes, but you have to understand how he was before and after his conversion. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I think is one of the greatest testimonies to why Scofield is a good man and you can trust him.
Remarkably Jewish club in New York City. Majority of the club was Jewish people supporting the Zionist cause.
I'm not gonna. I'm gonna leave the Lotus Club to one of the books I'm gonna recommend. But here's the thing: is that he did not join the Lotus Club until later in life, and the Lotus Club, if anything, brought him more influence in a good way. Because a lot of the Bible studies that he had was around the New York and in the financial district area, and they would have him at the YMCA's, and a lot of rich men would attend these. Revivals were happening. People that were very, very well off, industrialists, bankers, were coming to Christ, being transformed, and they were putting their money towards things that they thought were going to last eternally. That really happened. I mean, even John D. Rockefeller, you got to give him credit. He put so much money into the Baptist denomination. I mean, the amount that he donated to the Baptist churches is huge. And I mean, I'm going to tell you, man, if you were a Baptist pastor and he came to your church, you'd be like, dude, thank you. Like, we're going to use this for good, realizing that probably the other times you're putting that money is probably not being used for good at all. But look, ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand that Scofield was so influential that a lot of people saw that and they wanted to be able to help him and those around him that were spreading the truth.
Where this poor guy, this poor pastor, suddenly has enough money to go be funded overseas, and he meets their friends who are running the Oxford University Press, and they give him a book deal before the book is even written.
Look, that's not how it happened, and for the sake of time, I'm not gonna go into. I'm gonna recommend primary source documents, but again, like I said, Scofield was very influential because he was so good at teaching and he was so good at speaking, and he was able to convince these men and help them in so many ways. Through the Bible studies, like I said, at the YMCA, and also through the conferences. They would have Bible conferences, the first of their kind ever, where men would come from all over the country, wealthy men, middle-class men, probably poor men, to go and learn and study together and discuss things of the Bible. This is huge. This laid the groundwork for, many great Christian universities. And so people need to look at it like through that lens and not through like, oh my goodness, the only way this poor man, which he wasn't, I don't know of any, I'm sure he struggled financially after he got divorced and he lost his political career was destroyed. But as far as I know, he was still practicing law, all the way up till right before he got saved. And then 3 years later, he got ordained in the Presbyterian church, and eventually he ended up taking over a church, and he did very well, and he deserved it. He put his work into it, but he wasn't poor out of nowhere, and these Freemason Zionists came and got him and took him up to where he is, to where eventually he had the Scofield Reference Bible. And also I want to point out, and there's some, if I can pull it up, I'm not going to be able to reach it, but during the time of Scofield, there was also another gentleman by the name of E.W. Bullinger who eventually published his study Bible around the same time as Scofield, the Scofield Reference Bible, and their theology is very close, and they're both dispensationalists, and nobody can attack E.W. Bullinger's character. And in fact, most people, I would say Candace, Tucker, and the like, they are so clueless about E.W. Bullinger, and if they knew about E.W. Bullinger, they wouldn't have a leg to stand on in regards to the things that they're saying that aren't true. So just something to think about.
Nothing. You just know nothing. Pastor suddenly has enough money to go be funded overseas, and he meets their friends who are running the Oxford University Press, and they give him a book deal before the book is even written. And he's going to do notations on a Bible. And then he spends some time in Switzerland at the same time that the Zionist Congress was held in Switzerland. And suddenly, It took him just a couple of years after shaking hands with the Oxford University Press, a man that had no experience, he wasn't even a university grad, had no professional background, gets a book deal so massive that suddenly they...
So he did have an honorary degree. He did put DD next to his name, and I believe that. I believe that he definitely earned it. There is no documentation of it, but I'm going to tell you right now that he was surrounded from the start around very highly influential Christian men, D.L. Moody, for example, and that if he did not truly earn that honorary degree, he would have never had any respect. Okay, he was also he was also involved in starting Christian universities. Okay, Scofield was he was the man. He was super gifted. He was very talented, and he didn't graduate from Harvard or Yale or anything like that. I mean, there definitely was no Christian schools at that time when he was young in the 1800s. But as Candace is saying, he didn't. How did this person who didn't even go to college? How did he even get a book deal? I mean, Candace, did you even graduate from college? I don't know. Maybe you did. Maybe you got an honorary degree. I don't know. But correct if I'm wrong. But I don't even know if Candace even graduated from college. That shouldn't be something that. And this is where I'm like really shocked. Candace being supporter of homeschools. I mean, I'm pretty sure Candace has a lot of negative things to say about the American university system, like things that are negative and rightly so, and constructive. But to try to discredit Scofield because he didn't have any formal education, which is like, I mean, come on, Candace, you can do better than that. Seriously, come on.
In printing this Bible, which featured, just as John Rich said, notations. I'm supposed to believe Scofield wrote that. How long would it take you if you had to put notes for every verse in the Bible? How quickly could you do that?
Okay, first off, like, she's trying to, like, ladies and gentlemen, like, this is so bad for Candace to do this. And no one's gonna know about this. No one's gonna know about this. But I'm just telling you, this to me, this is just a big red flag. But what she's trying to say is, how in the world could C.I. Scofield make a Bible with notes for every single verse? Well, Candace, you've never studied the history of Scofield. You don't know anything about the subject. I mean, if you were to open it up, for example, you'll see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consulting editors. No one thinks that Scofield went in here and did every single verse. He didn't do every single verse. Like, where did you get that idea from? But did you know, he spent, I don't know, maybe 7 years straight, literally preparing this? And that, did you know that probably a couple decades before that, he was already teaching the Bible through a correspondence course, and that what he did is he took a lot of his courses and he was able to format them and put them in this Bible, and that's what he was doing. So, Candace, get yourself a Scofield Bible, take time, read it, and you know what? I think you'll walk away with a different perspective, and a perspective that would agree more with me.
It's amazing how quickly he did it. And suddenly, because it was funded by Zionists, it became a Bible that was the most massive in print.
Yes.
That's the story of the Scofield Bible. That's the real hidden story of the Scofield Bible. John Rich is not lying. I've never spoken to John Rich about this. And I am not lying to you. Okay? Oof. I am not lying to you.
I'm just telling you from her body language, I'm not saying that Candace is saying thinking I'm lying to these people on purpose. I'm saying that what I get from her body language and the way she's expressing herself right here is that she's I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't hear any confidence in her voice, in her body language. I clearly see someone that is really being very careless and being driven by her emotions, but emotions that I think that are need to be put in check for sure.
What they decided to do there was to boil the frog, was to take the King James version of the Bible and to essentially just put notations of how people should read. Just a word removed here, a word removed there. And the next thing you know, guys, you wouldn't believe this, but Christian Zionism was born.
No. That's not how it worked out, Candace. That's not even close. And as far as the text goes, the King James version, which is the greatest version out there, nothing in the 1917 edition, nothing in the text itself is tampered with. Nothing. So there's no words removed in this classic edition. There's nothing like that. 1917, and that's the only one I recommend. I don't recommend the New Scofield Bible at all, because it is guilty of what Candace just said. Indeed, it definitely is. And Scofield was long dead when the New Scofield Bible was published. But anyways, forget about that. You have to understand that it's just simply not true what she's saying at all. And for her to say that this is where Christian Zionism came from, ladies and gentlemen, that's far from the truth. That's not even close to being true.
That's it. That's the truth. That is the reality. That is how Christian Zionism was born in America. It is credited with the Scofield Bible. And that is a problem for me. It's a problem for me when I look up and I see people who I know are wonderful people, who I know love the Lord, and who stop themselves short, who will argue pro-life all day, but will stop themselves if the matter pertains to Israel. I now make the joke that, quite literally, I think Israel could do anything. Anything. And Christian Zionists would just say, oh, but God will bless those who bless Israel. Look at this article. I'm showing you this article, by the way. They just were able to pull it up here. It was in CBS News, pertaining to the pedophiles. Do you have that to pull up, guys? Oh, you have the info here. Yeah, about in CBS News about how we are not allowed to get back our pedophiles. And if you speak to a Christian.
Okay, so like I said earlier, she's all over the place in this topic of dispensationalism, Christian Zionism, and Scofield. She goes to talking about C.I. Scofield, and then pivots over to Freemasons and the Rothschilds. It's all over the place, and then she kind of lands the plane on this is where Christian Zionism came from, and then talks about how then her friends, people she knows, will say quote verses like from Genesis 12, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse thee, and say Israel can do anything, they can get away with anything, and it's Scofield's fault, and then pivots over to pedophiles. It was like, where are you going, Candace? And the thing is, and I think we can get away from that now, is she goes in, she tries to vilify the Scofield Reference Bible, go into how that's tied in to the foundations of Christian Zionism. It's all nefarious, and then is concerned because a lot of her friends, a lot of people she knows, are supporters of Israel, and they support Israel no matter what, somehow brings in pedophiles into this. And Candace, I don't know, newsflash, but I think the Vatican has a lot of issues with that. It's not a secret. So it's like you start to ask yourself, like, you shooting yourself in the foot, Candace? Are you being consistent? Like, what's going on here? And I really hope Candace watches this. I really do. And I hope she knows where I'm coming from. I'm an expert in this subject. I know what I'm talking about. And I can tell you right now that I'm not one of those Christians that you're talking about. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Israel, the government, can do whatever they want. Not even close. And if any dispensationalist thinks that, shame on them. And I'll be surprised if her friends that she claims to think like, oh, we can do what we want, Israel can do whatever they want, I'll be surprised if they even know what the Scofield Bible is, or if they even have it. Okay, I have a lot of friends that are, what you would classify as dispensational, and they might not even realize it, or that they believe that Israel's going to be restored in the future. A lot of them don't even know the Scofield Bible. Like I said, it's not as popular as it used to be. Yes, I would agree. A lot of them don't know their roots. They don't know like a lot of what influenced them. But I mean, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I guess I'm gonna make videos like this. All right, let's close it up. But before we do, let me recommend a few books. First book is The History of the Scofield Reference Bible. This was done by Arno Gaebelin. He was actually one of the editors, one of his good friends. And I'm going to tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the number one book you should read in regards to the Scofield Reference Bible. Hands down. Super cheap. Get on Amazon, probably for less than $10. Another great book, which might be hard to get, is the Scofield Bible, Its History, Impact on the Evangelical Church. This is a magnificent book, and I think the authors do a very good job at just being fair and balanced, if you will. And they go into Scofield himself. They look at his character, they look at how he was before he was a Christian and after he was a Christian, and they go into the making of the Scofield Reference Bible. It's well documented. It's filled with a lot of notes in the back, many notes, so you can go to the primary sources. So I highly recommend it. Done by R. Tad Magnum and Mark S. Sweetnam. And then also you have For Zion's Sake, by Paul Richard Wilkinson, Christian Zionism and the Role of John Nelson Darby. This book is filled with a lot of notes and has a very strong bibliography, and I highly recommend it so you can get access to primary sources. If you're really looking to know more about this subject, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I'm telling you, if you don't have these books in your library, don't even come to the discussion. Stay out of it. Don't even do it. Don't do it at all. And last but not least, I think you need to get a copy of the Scofield Reference Bible. Be sure you get the 1917 Classical Edition. Be careful if it has anything in the page, on the copyright page, and if it doesn't say 1917 and it says anything like 1960s or New School Reference Bible, beware. Don't do it. Make sure you get the facsimile copy edition. You can get it cheap, between maybe $25 and $45 on Amazon. It's a must. And again, whether you're on my side or not, you got to read these books and this Bible if you want to really know what's going on. Don't rely on Candace Owens. Don't rely on Tucker Carlson. Don't rely on them. They are not giving you the truth. And Candace, you need to give the people the truth. And with that, everyone, peace out and God bless. Later.